Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the fourth iteration of me filming what has very quickly become one of my favourite videos of the year to film. This is my horror book shopping in Oxford vlog. I have been doing this now for 4 years. This has accidentally become a little bit of a tradition every year, and I'm not mad about it, because getting to go to Oxford, getting to buy a load of horror books, it's a fun time, and that is exactly what I'm doing today. I am heading into Oxford. I have got a little bit of a list of books that I would like to browse, but I'm also just going to go in with not too many expectations, have a little bit of a browse, ask for some bookseller recommendations, and come home and haul a load of horror books for you guys. I love the horror genre. I think I started getting into it about 5 years ago or so, and have been slowly building my collection ever since. Obviously, this video always helps quite a lot to add to that collection and keep me going for the following year. I need to get better at reading horror in other months than just October and November, because I feel like I go so hard for horror. That doesn't sound like it did in my head. I get very excited about reading lots of horror in October and November, and then I forget that I can actually read horror in other months of the year. I do read a little bit of horror in other months of the year as well, but I feel like I just intensely read horror these few months and then like have a little bit of a break and then get really excited to do that again the following year. But I need to remind myself, you can read horror in the middle of the summer. That's fine, I think. Anyway, I'm of course going to be growing my collection today. I have no idea where these books are going to go on my shelves. We'll figure that out. I'll read you a little bit of the list that I have got for today. I can't really remember what many of these are about. We've got I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. That one is about a teenage slasher. I know that much. That's one of the main ones I want to try and get today. Although, I did read another book by Stephen Graham Jones. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I didn't love that one quite so much. So I'm kind of dubious of this one, but I really like the idea of the subject matter for it. Not that I can entirely remember the plot of any of these, but I've just basically made a list on my phone of ones that I've been taking pictures of in bookshops for like the last few months. But I remember liking the plot of that one. The Blonde Dies First by Joelle Wellington. I've put Kindle next to that one, which makes me think that maybe the cover isn't great and that I thought I would maybe prefer to have that on Kindle? I don't know. Pay the Piper by George A. Romero and Daniel Kraus. Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. That is probably the one I'm most excited about. Can I remember the plot again? No, but I know that I was excited about it when I picked it up and looked at it in the bookshop. I've also seen that quite a lot recently, so I feel like that one should hopefully be one that's quite easy to find. The Reformatory by Tananav Dew. I will check the pronunciation on that author's name. Ali by Junji Ito and From Below by Darcy Coates. I think that one is a sea-based horror, which, I feel like that's going to be creepy. I feel like it's got to be. The dark emptiness of the ocean just is already enough to scare me. Anyway, I am constantly on a search for the fear in the horror books that I am buying and reading. Some have successfully managed to scare me, some have not, but that is always the goal, to try and find a horror book that is genuinely going to scare me. The reason I pick Oxford for this video is kind of twofold. One, the atmosphere of Oxford just fits perfectly for filming this kind of a video, and two, they have two big bookshops with two dedicated horror sections. Their Blackwell's is actually split, so they have their main Blackwell's on one side of the street, and on the other side they've recently split it to have their sci-fi, fantasy and horror books, of which they have two huge horror shelves, so I'm very happy to be able to browse the horror there. Not every bookshop splits up horror so well, and if they do, it can often be quite a small selection, so I'm glad that they've got so much choice there. And then their Waterstones also has a pretty decent horror split section, so it just gives me a good excuse to go back to Oxford. I love going to Oxford, it's one of my favourite cities, and they've got loads of horror books to browse, so I am very excited to film this video. Oh, also, my top. I just want to take a moment to appreciate how perfect this top is for today. This is my House of Thousand Spirits top. This is from Joni Clothing. They have sponsored previous content of mine. This is not part of a sponsorship or an ad, but I just genuinely love them. So I will be leaving a link down below for this top if you want to check it out, because it's perfect for this video. All right, it's time to head to Oxford and buy a load of horror books. I give you my Oxford haul. We're gonna go through all the books that I bought whilst I was in Oxford. There's quite a few. I pretty much just save up to be able to buy all of my horror books in this video. Not to say I don't buy horror books throughout the year as well, but I just love doing this. I love binge buying the horror books. Both Blackwell's and Waterstones were fantastic. The Blackwell's has expanded its horror section. It's gone from being like three shelves I think it was on one side of the bookshop to having like a whole corner on the other side with like 3 big main shelves and then 2 other shelves and a table, and there was so much to choose from. Also, both bookshops that I went in had 2 amazing horror expert booksellers, so I got some great recommendations as well. Generally, it was a good time. I got lots of books. Let's do a haul. Obviously, the amount of books I'm about to haul is not my usual amount of books that I would buy in one go, but I love doing this video and I love waiting and saving to be able to do this video, which is why this is such an excessive amount. We're just gonna go from the top of the bag, I guess, which I think is the books I got in Blackwell's. This was not one that I thought I would get today. This is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So I mentioned, did I mention? I think I mentioned that I read a Stephen Graham Jones book and I didn't really love it. And I still can't remember the name of that book. Maybe it's in the cover of this one. Hang on. Okay, it was My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I didn't love that one, but I can't remember why I didn't love it, because it had the slasher vibes that I wanted. I don't know whether it was maybe the reading headspace I was in. I'm not really sure, but the bookseller in Blackwell's told me that this one has a really different vibe to it, and even if I didn't like the other book that I had read, that this one would probably be one that I would enjoy from what I'd described. So I picked this one up. I was obviously also looking for the other Stephen Graham Jones as well, which was on my list, which I did get. I will haul in a minute wherever that is in the book stack. But based on the bookseller recommendation, I wanted to pick this one up as well. 10 years ago, Ricky Gabe, Lewis and Cassidy shot some elk. It happens every year. It's been happening forever. It's the way it's always been, but this time it's different. Now a decade later, these men are being stalked themselves, hunted, bound to their heritage, bound by society, and trapped in the endless expanses of the landscape. These men and their children must face the ferocious spirit that is coming for them one at a time. As well as the bookseller recommendation, I think as well, there's so many authors that if I'd have entered reading them on a different book, I might not have kept reading them, but I didn't. I entered them on a book I loved, so I kept reading them, like Grady Hendrix. I think if I'd have started reading Grady Hendrix on How to Sell a Haunted House, I might have been like, this was fine, but it's not necessarily for me, which is how I think I felt about, why do I keep forgetting the name of the book? My Heart is a Chainsaw. Whereas I actually entered Grady Hendrix on the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which to be honest isn't one of my favourite ones, but intrigued me enough to keep going. So I'm trying to think, well, maybe if I'd have read this book first, then I might have kept reading other Stephen Graham Jones books. And obviously I've bought another Stephen Graham Jones book, so that was kind of my logic behind this one. This looks really freaking creepy. This is Dolly by Susan Hill. I read Little Hand by Susan Hill. I also do have The Woman in Black. Oh my god, that's such a creepy, weird cover. I really like the artist for the new covers for Susan Hill's books. I much prefer the covers for these versus the ones that I have. I've got the movie cover for The Woman in Black, and I've got one of the older ones for the Small Hand. Is it Small Hand or the Little Hand? The Small Hand. This is following a birthday doll, a doll that was given to a girl on her birthday, and then 40 years later, I think it is, there's some consequences of this doll. I think it was the wrong doll that was given to this little girl, and we're following it 40 years later as some things begin to resurface. I mean, it's a doll. I feel like it's gonna be creepy based off of that. It's just... I got recommended this in both bookshops, so of course I had to get this. This is Chuck Tingle's Bury Your Gaze. I love the cover. I kept saying I wanted something that had quite good slasher vibes to it, and both booksellers in Waterstones and in Blackwell's recommended me this. Misha knows that chasing success in Hollywood can be hell, but finally, after years of trying to make it, his big moment is here, an Oscar nomination, and the executives at the studio for his long-running streaming series know just the thing to kick his career to the next level. Kill off the gay characters. For the algorithm in the upcoming season finale. Misha refuses, but he soon realises that he's just put a target on his back, and what's worse, monsters from his horror movie days are stalking him and his friends through the hills above Los Angeles. Haunted by his past, Misha must risk his entire future before the horrors from the silver screen find a way to bury him for good. I said I wanted something that was like meta-esque, and this was the recommendation. Meta and like kind of slashery. I kind of just want to read this immediately, to be honest. This just sounds like it's going to be a really, really fun time. Okay, this one isn't actually a horror book, but I'm going to haul it in this section anyway because this is one of the books that I got. Basically, I was chatting away to one of the booksellers in Blackwell's, and one of the other booksellers was overhearing just the general conversation we were having, comes over and brings me this book and is like, you have to read this. So I was like, okay then. So this is The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandraskira. I need to check the pronunciation on that one. The way that the bookseller described it was so cool. I'm going to read you the blurb, but I wish I could have just recorded them saying it because it was just, It was what sold it to me. I think sometimes I don't even need to read a blurb. If someone tells me what a book is about and what they liked about it, I will just want to consume that book. Feta was raised to kill, honed as a knife to cut down his sainted father. This gave him plenty to talk about in therapy. He walked among the invisible devils and anti-gods that mock the mortal form. He learned a lethal catechism, lost his shadow, and gained a habit for secrecy. After a blood-soaked childhood, Feta escaped his rural hometown for the big city and fell into a broader world where divine destinies are a dime a dozen. Everything in Luriat is more than it seems. Group therapy is recruitment for a revolutionary cadre. Junk emails hint at the arrival of a god. Every door is laden with potential, once closed may never open again. This city is scattered with bright doors, looming portals through which a cold wind blows. In this unknown metropolis, Feta will discover what kind of a man he is, and his discovery will rewrite the world. I can't even remember remotely the way the main character described this, but I think it was like a load of people that have had prophecies and are kind of defying them, or like a load of chosen one type of people that aren't actually doing their chosen one thing. I can't remember, but it sounded pretty good, so I picked this up. This sounded great fun. This is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. The tagline on the top is, if you give this book a 1-star review, you might end up dead. It just sounds ridiculously brilliant. It's following somebody who gives a 1-star review to a book that she thought was poorly written. It was a gruesome horror novel. And then it turns out that someone's like stalking her in the shadows, and some weird stuff started to happen that is like connected to this 1-star review. It says at the bottom, this is a fight between author and reader, who will have the last word. It just sounds brilliantly ridiculous that essentially someone's left a review that an author didn't like, and therefore like some of the hauntings maybe from the book, I don't know, are coming after her. I just thought this sounded like it was going to be really good fun. This is The Three by Sarah Lotz. This one I am not going to be reading this month, I can tell you that for sure, because it's following a plane crash. I'm not 100% sure why I thought this was a good idea, but the plot, I literally, you know when you read a blurb and you can't not pick the book up? It was that kind of a vibe. Also the fact that Stephen King says really wonderful, hard to put down, and vastly entertaining. I'm going to read you the blurb because the last line just... It got me. Also, I really love the show Manifest, and that is kind of centric around the idea of a plane crash, and I do enjoy that, so, you know, not that this is Manifest in book form, but it has a kind of similarity to it. Black Thursday, the day that will never be forgotten, the day that 4 passengers' planes crashed at almost exactly the same moment at 4 different points around the globe. There are only 4 survivors. 3 are children who emerge from the wreckage seemingly unhurt, but they are not unchanged, and the 4th is Pamela May Donald, who lives long enough to record a voice message on her phone, a message that will change the world. The message is a warning. I really want to read this immediately, but I know that's not a good idea because I'm going on a flight in like a week. Part 1 is literally called Crash. Yeah, there's no way I'm picking this up before I get on my flight, but the cover pulled me in, and then, yeah, I just got intrigued by the whole the message is a warning thing. Like, I need to know why. This one is not for me. This is for my sister. This is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. I got this one in an Oxfam bookshop whilst I was in Oxford. I was trying to find something dystopian with the kind of darky death vibes that dystopia does lean so well into. I don't know if this is dystopian as such, but it's got horses on it, and my sister really likes horses, and she also likes the kind of death stuff. She's really enjoying Scythe at the moment. She's just getting into like really carving her own reading taste. So I think she's on the 3rd Scythe book, which is also why I started reading the Scythe series, because she enjoyed it so much. So I'm just trying to find other things that I think she would like. I think she'd like The Maze Runner as well. Anything that's kind of got that darker element to it. She loves the Hunger Games films, but hasn't read the books, and I think she'd really like the books for those as well. I hadn't read this one. I haven't read it, but the first line is, it's the first day of November, and so today someone will die. So, you know, I feel like that's her jam. So I got her this because we are all going on holiday next week, and I thought she might like a book. Okay, now I think we're into the ones that I got in Waterstones. I'm so excited about this. This is Christina Henry's The House That Horror Built. This one, again, I think has that meta element to it of somebody who likes horror as a genre, which is why I wanted to pick this up. I really like that idea of acknowledging the genre in the books that I'm reading at the moment. Single mum Harry Adams has always loved horror movies, so when she's offered a job cleaning for revered horror director Javier Castillo, she leaps at the chance. His forbidding Chicago mansion, Bright Horses, is filled from top to bottom with terrifying props and costumes, as well as glittering awards from his decades-long career making films that thrilled audiences and dominated the box office, until family tragedy and scandal forced him to vanish from the industry. Javier values discretion, so Harry tries to clean the house immaculately and keep her head down. She needs the money from this job to support her son, but then she starts hearing noises from behind a locked door, noises that sound remarkably like a human voice calling for help, though Javier lives alone and never has visitors. Harry knows that not asking questions is a vital part of keeping her job, but she soon finds that the house and her enigmatic boss have secrets she can't ignore. That sounds so good. This is the Stephen Graham Jones one that I wanted to grab. I Was a Teenage Slasher. It's got the slasher vibes. That is what I'm craving so much at the moment. 1989, La Mesa, Texas, a community driven by oil and cotton, a town where everyone knows everyone else's business. Tolly Driver, 17, a good kid with more potential than application, exists on the outskirts with his best friend, Amber. They navigate the hellscape of the teenage social scene, sticking together in a place that doesn't know how to be different. But when they go to a fateful party at Deke Masterson's house, a party that ends in a series of gruesome, brutal, and extravagant murders, Jesus, Tolly's world gets flipped upside down because some slashers are born in violence and retribution. Some were born that way, and some were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Both of these were the ones I was most excited about getting, so I'm so pleased I was able to. Also off my list, I managed to find The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. I am so excited about this one, even more so now, because I was chatting to the bookseller in Blackwell's. I got this one in Waterstones, and then the bookseller in Blackwell's also recommended it to me and said that it's one of the best horrors they've ever read. I think they said it was like the best book they read this year or last year, whatever year they read it, so I am very excited about this one. Following a trivial scuffle with a white boy, 12-year-old Robert Stevens Jr. is sent to the Gracetown School for Boys, but the segregation reformatory is a chamber of horrors, haunted by the boys that have died there. In order to survive the sadistic school warden and the evils meted out in his funhouse, Robert must enlist the help of the school's ghosts, only they have their own motives. It's apparently incredibly well written. I am very excited for this one as well, even more so now, hearing someone else's excitement for it. I also got Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I think I saw this one last year and I can't remember why I didn't pick it up then, but this time around I was like, yes, I wish to have this one. For Vera, going home means returning to the notorious Crowder house, where her serial killer father murdered his victims and buried their bodies beneath. Then notes start to appear in Vera's father's handwriting, but they can't be from him. He's been dead for years. Vera thought that the house had given up all its secrets, but now she must uncover how deep the root goes. How good does that sound? And the final book that I picked up is Alley by Junji Ito. This is a load of short stories. The tagline on the back said, "What secret lies within the stains on the alley's walls?" I found Uzumaki by Junji Ito really weirdly unsettling. Brilliant, brilliant book, completely bizarre, and I just wanted to read more Junji Ito ever since, so I picked this one up. I don't know why I went for this one. I don't usually go for short story collections, but I think in graphic novel format maybe it's a little bit more appealing to me. So I thought I'd give this a go. Okay, that is my massive horror haul from Oxford. I have no idea where these books are going to go on my shelves. I genuinely do not know where. There's no space. There is no space. I did a little bit of an unhaul a couple of weeks ago because in my head I was like, well, I'm going to get all more horror books and, you know, I need to clear a bit of space. No, there's no space. I don't know why I've done this to myself. I'll make it work. I'll do a little bit of a rejig, but thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for coming along with me horror book shopping in Oxford. I'm sure I'll film this video again next year. I just love doing it. It makes me very happy and I always get excited. So thank you for coming along with me. I will see you in the next one.